Hello everyone, Bashar here. We are together with the first boss of Sintranos. So Sintranos is upon us, or almost upon us, and Plarium has started, sharing information about the bosses that we'll be seeing there. And this guy, as you can probably tell from the base form on your screen, he has two forms like mythical champions. His name is Amius, the Lunar Archon. Let's take a look at his base form. His A1 is he attacks everyone. His damage is increased by 10% for each buff on him, and he also gets healed by 100% of the damage dealt, and includes damage dealt to shield buffs. So normally that kind of healing will trigger off, so to speak, real damage. Damage not inflicted on a shield, but this time Amius counts the damage dealt on shields as well. The second attack is AoE attack again. Before attacking, increases all the duration of all buffs on him by a turn, decrease duration of all debuffs on him by a turn, and he gets healed by 20%. And for every buff that had his duration increased, he heals for 5% more, and he gets 10% turn meter for each debuff that has duration that has the duration decreased. So if we have like 4 buffs and 3 debuffs on him, he will be healing by 40%, and he will be gaining 30% turn meter, which is of course very dangerous, which means we should be really careful in what kind of debuffs and buffs we bring, because you will see the debuffs are gonna hurt us even more. And his third ability is on a 3-turn cooldown. He removes any block buffs on him and replaces it with a block debuff, which is kind of the mirrored reverse version. And then he does the same with almost every buff, right? Decreased attack gets replaced by increased attack. Decreased defense gets replaced by increased defense. Weaken will be replaced by strengthen. Heal reduction specifically gets replaced by continuous heal. But as it says, any debuffs negatively affecting stats, I think this means this won't be touching poisons or HP burn, which is kind of what we need to bring here, right? But if the A3, even if the A3 is not touching those, the A2 will, and that will give him turn meter. And the mirrored buffs have a duration of 3 turns. Then he stuns everyone except mythical champions and forces all mythical champions to change form, right? If you are in the base form, you go into the alternate, or if you're in the alternate, you go to the base form. And he gets 10% turn meter for each debuff converted into a buff by the skill, which means we probably should not be bringing any of those, right? Decrease attack, weaken, decrease defense, decrease speed, right? They are very dangerous. He gets their counterparts, and he also gets turn meter from it. Yeah. Okay, so he has 7 million different passives. Some of them are, the usual stuff. But let's take a look. Whenever an enemy is healed, Amius also heals 25% to the value of the original heal. So this is kind of nothing, because guys, we would be dealing probably in the higher stages millions and millions of damage to the boss. So if we heal by 100k and the guy gets 25k out of it, that is nothing, right? So this is irrelevant, I would say, if I'm not misunderstanding it. He heals Amius by 100% of damage against shield buffs. If the shield is removed by damage, he will heal equal to the full value of the shield. I don't think these are very relevant. These heals are not going to be very big, right? The Lunar Storm is going to be problematic because if it's percentage based, but this is not very dangerous, I don't think. And finally, this is very interesting, guys. if you somehow reduce your cooldowns, right? I mean, Yumeko, right? The Cycle of Magic, I think that's the name. You know, the blue mastery that reduces the cooldown by with a 5% chance, right? Or, you know, reflex or refresh accessories. Any kind of cooldown reduction, you also reduce the cooldown of the second passive skill's cooldown by a turn, right? And if you're curious about, you know, why a passive skill would have a cooldown, so guys, some passive skills actually are not exactly passive skills, so they have a passive part and an active part, right? And the active part triggers upon some condition being met, and that part could have a cooldown on it, right? We'll just see in a second. So the second passive, what he does is, so at the beginning of his turn, places an eclipse buff on him for 3 turns. This buff cannot be removed, transferred, spread, or have its duration increased or decreased by enemies or allies, right? So we cannot touch this, right? If I don't misunderstand though, it can be blocked, right? There is nothing that says that it cannot be blocked. So if we are faster than the boss and we put up the block buffs, he will not be getting this eclipse. Something to think about. This skill will be on a 4-turn cooldown at the start of battle, and whenever Amius transfers into his base form. Okay. The passive skill gives him a revive on death ability, but it only triggers if he is in his alternate form. So he kinda has a. So I don't see anything else that benefits from the eclipse. So this eclipse is basically a revive on death buff for the alternate form only. So if we kill him in this form while he has the eclipse, he will just die, right? But if we kill him in the other form, he will get a revive on death. That is a lengthy way of, you know, doing the revive on death. But they probably couldn't say revive on death because revive on death would work in all forms. So I think that is, or maybe the alternate form benefits from this eclipse, right? There could be that. So the other stuff is pretty basic boss stuff, but this time around we have something extra here. It says that max HP based skills cannot exceed 5% of the boss's max HP. So guys, this doesn't exist, right? Up until this moment, this was 10% for every single strongest boss in the game, right? You know, stage 25 of normal dungeons, all stages of hard dungeons, Hydra, you know, whatever it is, right? It's always capped at 10%. 5% is new. So, I mean, even if you nuke the boss with a Cold Hearts A3, you know, 350 crit damage and Savage, you still will not be able to do more than 5%, right? That's the max. But don't get this wrong, it doesn't say you cannot hit more than 5% to the boss with a single hit. It says max HP based skills cannot deal more than 5% to the boss, right? I mean, if somehow, you know, with Cupidus or something, you are engaging a lower level, right? And you are doing 50% in a single hit, that would be allowed, right? What you can't do is exceeding 5% of the boss's HP with a single hit. But Mut can, of course, deal 15% because he does 3 hits, right? So he is immune to that kind of stuff. So there is one thing that I don't see here, but I mean, he should be. I don't see anything regarding being immune to turn meter reduction effects, immune to stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, block active skills, block passive skills, fear, true fear, petrification. Okay, but he is not immune to. He's not immune to turn meter decreasing effects. Also immune to HP exchange effects, HP balancing effects, and cooldown increasing effects. So I can reduce his turn meter. I mean, that feels very wrong. Maybe it's an oversight, right? Because he definitely should be immune. I'll bring Allure and he will never play. Right? All of this will go to waste. So it either goes in automatically, right? There is no need to state this. And I think there would be a need to state this, but I mean, I don't think I can reduce this guy's turn meter, right? Maybe the alternate form will shed some light on it. And Awakened Weakness. So the thing is, the Awakened Weakness is extra strong in here, right? So Awakened Weakness is basically the number of red stars on your champion allows you to take less damage and allows you to deal more damage. So it is 2.5% damage reduction for the first 2 levels of Ascension, Awakening, sorry, not Ascension, and 5% for levels 3 and higher. So if you have a 5-star soul on, let's say, your Sifi, she will take 25% reduced damage and she will deal 50% more damage. So the 6-star does not have an effect here, as you can see. I mean, at 5-star you cap out. I mean, this is stronger than what I have normally seen. So there are some questions in here. I mean, as I said, turn meter immune. I mean, he very much feels like he is turn meter reduction immune. So maybe, as I said, it's something basic. Let's take a look at his ultimate form. And another thing that I don't understand is, how is he changing form? I mean, this skill forces him to change form as well. But he's not a mythical champion, he's a boss. Yeah, I do have questions. And of course, the skill order is also important. I mean, does he do this immediately and change form or something? I mean, that kind of stuff we'll need to see. Let's take a look at the alternate form. The visual is the same. Yeah, kind of. Okay, so the second form, the A1 is attacks one enemy twice, so there is no AoE anymore. He hits a single guy, will ignore 100% of target's defense, damage increases by 20% for each debuff on the enemy. Oh, decreases Amius defense ignore effect for each awakening level on the target champion. 5% for levels 1 and 2, and 10%, yeah. Oh, and if he kills, that triggers the A3. So you kinda need to rely on awakened champions in you guys, because if it ignores 100% of defense, I mean, there is a very good chance that it could kill you. Okay, so you probably don't want to bring any non-awakened champions in here. Okay, let's see the A2 attacks all enemies. Before attacking, he increased the duration of the debuffs on us and the decreases the duration of all buffs on us, right? And the damage increases by 5% for each buff that we had our duration decrease. So, I mean, if we have like 8 buffs on the team, right? And he does this, he deals 40% more damage. Ooh, it is quite the dance, right? You have to, be careful about your buffs, his debuffs, your debuffs, his debuffs. I mean, everything is a consideration. And also decreases our turn meter by 10% for each of our debuffs that its duration increased. The turn meter gets reduced by 1% for levels 1, 2, and 2% at levels 3 and 6. So if you are 5-star, you will have the turn meter reduction effect reduced by 10%. Okay. Pretty nasty all over. And the A3 that gets triggered if he kills with A1 removes any block debuffs from enemies and replaces with unblock buffs. So he does the mirrored version of what the base form does. He removes all of our buffs and gives us their respective counterparts as debuffs, which means we should not only not debuffing him too much, we should also not buffing ourselves too much, right? But he doesn't touch all buffs, I guess. For example, unkillable would not be replaced by anything because there is not a mirrored version, there is not a reverse version of unkillable. Okay. Then places a sleep debuff on all enemies except mythical champions for 1 turn. This debuff cannot be blocked or resisted. Also forces all mythical champions to change form again. And he gets 10% turn meter for each buff he converts into a debuff. Let me check something. This is interesting. The stun on the base form is resistible and blockable, but the sleep on the alternate form is not blockable or resistible. We'll see. Okay, there is some interaction with the Eclipse. That's why they didn't do the revive on death thingy. So he reduces the healing that we receive by 50% when he has an Eclipse. He ignores block damage, shield, and unkillable when he has that Eclipse. And when we try to decrease our cooldowns by any means, he does A1 against a random enemy. And this skill has no cooldown, guys. So, that means we might need to change our masteries, right? Let that cycle of magic go. Take off those refresh accessories. No renegades, no Chimars. Pretty nasty. The other part is, I think, identical. So, how does he change form? Right? That is the question. This A3 on both forms does it, I guess. I'm not very sure. What kind of turn order does he, go with, right? He starts with A3 on the main form. Yeah. It's a little bit weird. Yeah, but seems he is a proper pain. Have to be really careful, and all the there is a lot of punishment, right? You buff yourself, he gets a lot of turn meter. You debuff him, he gets a lot of turn meter. He reduces your turn meter. Cooldown reduction is very severely punished. Yeah, and you kind of need to bring a lot of awakened champions here, right? It makes a real difference. We'll see how it goes. So the best method for killing him, I think, looks like dear good old Geo, right? Ninja, that kind of stuff, because HP burn has no reverse, right? So this ability will not remove HP burn. This will reduce its duration, but that's the only interaction he has. And with Geo's HP burn, when he hits you that hard, you just, deflect damage to his face. Could be good. Yeah, you probably bring a block buffs champion, a fast block buffs champion, apply the block buffs, so he doesn't get the Eclipse on him. But thing is, of course, this is a, quite an end game champion, end game boss. He could be just very, very fast. For example, guys, the Phantom Shogun has 350 speed or something. He still can be outsped, but only very end game accounts will be able to achieve it, right? And thing is, you just don't need to outspeed him, right? You also need to have the accuracy to land the debuff on him. For example, guys, Phantom Shogun is 350 speed and 580 resistance or something. So you need to have a champion that has more than 350 speed and something like 600 accuracy, which is mostly reserved for really end game accounts, right? Not for the faint of heart. So that is how he looks. We'll see him in action in Sintranos, I guess. And I will see you on stream. Bye bye, guys.